A billion-dollar criminal empire, hidden vaults packed with cash, luxury cars fortified like tanks. These weren't CEOs, they were America's richest gangsters. Men who turned bloodshed into billion-dollar balance sheets. But here's the twist. One of them was richer than most Fortune 500 founders. Another ran the heroin business with more structure than Amazon. And the wealthiest? His fortune was so elusive, even the FBI gave up trying to track it. Stick around because we're diving into the darkest corners of organized crime and discovering who built the richest criminal empire in U.S. history. 10. John Gotti. John Gotti didn't just rise to power. He made sure everyone watched. He was a mob boss with a movie star's swagger. Hair slicked back, silk tie perfect, stepping out of a Mercedes like he was headed to a red carpet instead of court. His nickname? The Dapper Don. But behind the designer suits was a man who turned murder into a management style. Gotti didn't just lead the Gambino crime family, he weaponized it. Under his reign, they weren't just thugs in the shadows. They were a Fortune 500 crime syndicate. Gambling, loan sharking, extortion, construction. Every corner of New York had Gotti's fingerprints on it. Weekly income, a clean $1 million. And that's just what we know about. But what made Gotti iconic wasn't just the money, it was the spectacle. He walked into courtrooms like he owned the place. Paparazzi flashed photos. Supporters cheered. He wore $5,000 Brioni suits while facing federal indictments. While most mobsters ran from cameras, Gotti posed for them. And then came the power play that made him infamous. December 16th, 1985. Paul Castellano, boss of the Gambino family, was gunned down outside Sparks Steakhouse in broad daylight. Gunmen emerged, fired, and vanished. The hit? Orchestrated by Gotti himself. He sat across the street in a car, calmly watching the man who stood in his way get erased. That move put Gotti on the throne, and once he had it, he ruled with a mix of charm and terror. Construction companies paid him not out of fear, but because it was cheaper than the alternative. His bookmaking operations made Vegas look like child's play. If you borrowed money from Gotti and missed a payment, you didn't get a reminder, you got a funeral. But his real genius was legal manipulation. Witnesses vanished, juries got bought, prosecutors got humiliated. He was called the Teflon Don because no charges ever stuck until 1992. That year, his own underboss, Salvatore "Sammy the Bull" Gravano, flipped. With 19 bodies tied to him and a life sentence looming, Sammy traded loyalty for freedom and took Gotti down with him. John Gotti died in 2002 from throat cancer, serving life without parole. His suits, his swagger, his empire, they're gone. But his legend, still bulletproof. 9. Frank Lucas. Frank Lucas wasn't just a drug dealer. He was a disruption. Before him, heroin came watered down, overpriced, and mob-controlled. After him, Blue Magic changed everything. Nearly 100% pure, dirt cheap, highly addictive. Lucas built a heroin empire that raked in $52 million, and he did it by breaking every rule in the book. Raised in North Carolina, Lucas made his way to Harlem where he worked under legendary gangster Bumpy Johnson. But when Bumpy died, Lucas didn't just step up, he stepped over the mafia entirely. While Italian families diluted heroin and split profits across middlemen, Lucas flew to Bangkok himself. There, he cut a deal with a U.S. Army sergeant named Ike Atkinson. The plan? Smuggle heroin into America hidden in the coffins of fallen U.S. soldiers. Morally repulsive, logistically genius. No customs, no inspection, just kilos of heroin riding in flag-draped boxes while families buried empty caskets. Blue Magic flooded Harlem. Lucas sold more potent heroin for less money, and customers lined up for blocks. He claimed to earn $1 million a day, and while some call that exaggerated, the DEA confirmed he was the most prolific dealer in Harlem's history. His spending was just as wild. Office buildings in Detroit, mansions in Miami, a 300-acre ranch with purebred cattle, hidden accounts in the Cayman Islands. He had so much money he stashed cash in garbage bags because banks asked too many questions. But what made Lucas dangerous wasn't violence, it was efficiency. He understood scale. He knew if he sold more for less, he'd crush the competition. And he did. But nothing gold stays. In 1975, the feds raided his empire, seized every property, and charged him with federal drug offenses. He flipped, testified and served 15 years instead of 70, got out in 1991, was arrested again, then released. Frank Lucas lived longer than most in his game and cashed out before the game ended him. 8. Nicky Barnes. Nicky Barnes treated Harlem like a corporate office. And heroin? That was just his product line. Nicknamed Mr. Untouchable, he was worth over $50 million and ran his drug empire like a Fortune 100 boardroom. Barnes didn't just build an empire, he structured one. In 1972, he formed the Council, 7 top dealers who carved Harlem into zones. They had meetings, rules, penalties for stealing, bonuses for loyalty. Think boardroom ethics, except the penalties involved bullets, not memos. And Barnes wasn't low profile. He flaunted his power. His outfits were neon statement pieces. His jewelry could blind you. He drove Bentleys, flew private, and spent more on shoes than most people earned annually. Then came the cover. In 1977, the New York Times Magazine put him front and center. The headline, Mr. Untouchable, a smirking Barnes, decked out in diamonds. It made him infamous, but it also made him a federal target. President Jimmy Carter read the article and reportedly called the Justice Department. The message, take him down. By 1978, Barnes was sentenced to life. While in prison, he learned his crew had betrayed him. One slept with his girlfriend. Another stole from his stash. Nicky Barnes made a decision that shocked the underworld. He flipped. He testified. Gave names. Took down his own counsel. In exchange, a reduced sentence and witness protection. He was released in 1998. Died in 2012. And proved one thing. Untouchable is just a myth. Everyone has a price. Even kings fall. 7. Arnold Rothstein. Arnold Rothstein wasn't a gangster. He was a chess master wearing a fedora. If there was a criminal blueprint for modern organized crime, he wrote it. Nicknamed the Brain, Rothstein didn't carry a gun. He carried ledgers. His net worth in today's money? Around $162 million. And his crimes weren't crimes of passion. They were crimes of precision. He made his fortune not by selling booze during Prohibition, but by financing those who did. He didn't run numbers, he bankrolled the syndicates who did. He was the money behind Lucky Luciano, Meyer Lansky, and more. If you needed capital to start a racket, Rothstein was your guy. But his most famous heist? Fixing the 1919 World Series. He paid off 8 Chicago White Sox players to throw the games. The scandal shook American sports to its core and made Rothstein a legend. He dressed sharp, ate at Lindy's, smoked cigars like a gentleman, and ruled crime like a banker. But in 1928, the House of Cards collapsed. Rothstein was shot over a gambling debt and died 2 days later, taking his secrets, and much of his fortune, to the grave. 6. Salvatore Romano. Salvatore. Sal the pizza guy. Romano pulled off some of the biggest heists in Wall Street history, and he didn't use a single bullet. Just charisma, cold calls, and a deep understanding of greed. Romano made $100 million by manipulating the stock market. He ran pump and dump schemes so slick they fooled seasoned investors. Artificially inflate penny stocks, sell them high, leave investors with garbage. At 18, he was at Lehman Brothers. By 21, he was pocketing more than most CEOs. His homes, fortresses, hidden vaults, designer everything. His Staten Island mansion had secret rooms for cash storage. His parties, lavish, celebrities, private performances, exotic cars out front like trophies. But Romano didn't just steal money, he stole dreams, college funds, retirements, life savings. And when the FBI caught up, he flipped. He testified, exposed massive fraud rings, and vanished into witness protection. His scams destroyed lives, but made him one of Wall Street's most infamous criminals. 5. Jose Miguel Batlle Sr. Jose Miguel Batlle Sr. didn't need drugs or guns. He just needed hope and numbers. His empire, built on an illegal lottery called Bolita, raked in $45 million a year by turning desperation into dollars. And it ran for decades, almost untouched. Batlle escaped Castro's Cuba and rebuilt his life in America, but instead of going legit, he leaned into the underground. Bolita was already popular in Latin communities. It was cheap, addictive, and easy to rig. Battle scaled it with military precision. His network, known as the Corporation, operated like a multinational company. Territories, bookkeepers, payout managers. He even had retirement plans for loyal lieutenants. By the 1980s, he owned real estate, restaurants, and businesses across the US and Latin America. But power attracts attention. Battle was convicted in 1977, escaped to Peru, opened a casino, and continued operations until 2004, when federal prosecutors finally shut him down for good. He died in prison in 2007. Rich, infamous, and never truly forgotten. Fourth, Meyer Lansky. Meyer Lansky was never flashy. No pinky rings, no photo ops, just cold, quiet calculation. While others shot their way to power, Lansky laundered his way to nearly $600 million. Born in Belarus and raised in New York, Lansky figured out early that violence was messy, but money was clean. He helped turn Las Vegas into a gambling mecca, bankrolled Havana casinos, and engineered some of the first modern money laundering systems the world had ever seen. He used offshore accounts, shell companies, and complex webs of transactions that made his criminal cash look squeaky clean. The FBI tried tracking it. Decades later, they still haven't found most of it. When he died in 1983, officials found a mere $35,000 in his name. Either he died broke, or he was so good at hiding his money, not even the government could find it. Most experts believe the latter, because when it came to hiding crime in plain sight, Lansky was the king. Third, Anthony Fat Tony Salerno. Fat Tony wasn't a drug lord or a trigger-happy enforcer. He was something far more dangerous, a businessman in a mobster's body. Worth an estimated $600 million, Salerno ran New York's construction industry like it was his private bank account. Operating out of the Palma Boys Social Club in East Harlem, Fat Tony rigged bids, controlled unions, and took silent cuts from nearly every major project in the city. If concrete got poured, chances are Fat Tony made money off it. He wore classic suits, always had a cigar, and rarely raised his voice. But behind the calm exterior was a man who controlled billions in infrastructure deals. From skyscrapers to bridges, his reach extended into every blueprint. In 1986, Fortune magazine named him the most powerful gangster in America. But by 1988, he was sentenced to 70 years for racketeering. Even in prison, his systems kept generating income. Because Fat Tony didn't just break into business, he became the business. 2. Bugsy Siegel. Bugsy Siegel wasn't just a mobster. He was a dreamer with blood on his hands and stars in his eyes. Worth $100 million by today's estimates, Siegel helped build Las Vegas from dusty desert to neon empire. He brought glamour to organized crime, Hollywood parties, silk suits, movie star friends. But what made Bugsy different was his vision. The Flamingo Hotel wasn't just a casino. It was the first luxury destination built on showbiz and sin. He obsessed over details, imported tiles, gold fittings, French chefs. He wanted the Flamingo to feel like a Hollywood film set. Except the actors were gamblers, and the stakes were real. But vision came at a cost. The budget ballooned. The profits didn't. Investors, mostly mob bosses, grew impatient. In 1947, Siegel was gunned down in his girlfriend's Beverly Hills home. His dream lived on, but he didn't. Vegas never forgot who lit the first neon sign. 1. Al Capone. Al Capone was more than a gangster. He was the gangster. With a net worth of $1.3 billion, adjusted for inflation, Capone turned prohibition into one of the most profitable criminal enterprises in U.S. history. He sold booze when booze was illegal, and he didn't just sell it. He owned the entire supply chain: breweries, distribution, protection rackets. In the 1920s, his Chicago operation brought in over $100 million a year. That's before you add gambling and prostitution. Capone lived like royalty: armored cars, diamond rings, a Miami estate that looked like a palace. But here's the twist. He also ran soup kitchens during the Great Depression. People hated the crime, but they loved the man who gave them food. But bullets didn't take him down. Taxes did. In 1931, Capone was sentenced to 11 years for tax evasion, the dullest crime to ever catch America's most dangerous man. He died in 1947 from complications of syphilis, out of power, out of money, and barely out of his mind. From Gaudi's flashy trials to Capone's billion-dollar booze empire, these men proved one thing: crime can pay. Temporarily, every one of them lost everything. Most died behind bars. Some betrayed their own. Others vanished into anonymity. They chased the American dream through back doors and blood money. But the ending was always the same. If you enjoyed this glimpse into the underworld's richest, hit that like button and drop a comment. Which gangster shocked you the most? And subscribe, because next time, we're diving into how billionaires live behind bars. Spoiler alert, it's not what you'd expect.